Well, Vinnie, we're in the basement of the Montmartre, places where a lot of notabilities play.
I can see that.
We had Miles Davis down here on a cancellation date from Stockholm, Sweden.
You're kidding.
Yeah, when you just started off, real big.
When was this?
This was just when he started off again playing live.
You're kidding.
It was 83 something like that, but 83? Was it 83? Yeah.
It's amazing.
Very nice. I didn't go to see
I
it.
like this place.
Yeah. I saw Pat Metheny in here first time. Gorgeous guy.
He was great. One of my favorite musicians.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you sort of at a very young age started off with playing with Frank Zappa.
Yeah, I was about 21, 22 when I started with Frank, and it was a great experience for me. Really great. Invaluable.
How did you get the job?
Well, I was playing in Los Angeles at these little toilets, you know, and I was playing with a bass player named Tom Fowler, and the Fowler brothers. And Tom, he knew George Duke pretty well, so he was talking to George Duke, and George told him that Frank was looking for a rhythm section. He told me that, and I just called the management up and I told them that I had a tape, and I'd send them a tape, and they didn't want a tape, you know. They kept telling me that they wouldn't listen to any of my tapes, and I kept bothering them, and then finally they called me back and said that they would listen to me, but that I had to go to a rehearsal hall where Frank was. So I went and auditioned, and then I got the job, you know. I just had to play a bunch of different things, and he liked me and hired me on the spot, so I was real happy about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
How did you prepare for that audition?
It's a funny thing because I was just starting to listen to a lot of Frank's music, and Live in New York had just came out. And I was just listening to him, and when I heard he was looking for a drummer, I just was trying to listen to as much of his music as I could. You know, I was just getting into it and enjoying it, and I listened to it, and I just thought I was just go for it, you know. I just said, well, I'm gonna go for it, you know. And I did, you know.
So the way you work, you don't really concentrate on what you're doing. You just go for it, and then you say, take it or leave it. I'm gonna do this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concentrating and all that, but it's just like, it's an attitude is what it is. It's an attitude of, you know, hey, I'm gonna shoot my shot, and it's sink or swim, you know. And that's the kind of attitude I had when I went in there. It's like, do or die. If I get the gig, great. If I don't get it, I don't get it, you know. This is my one-time chance, so I'm gonna shoot my shot, you know.
But you did.
Yeah. So
it sort of shows in the way you drum.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you throw yourself out in things you don't know what the results are gonna be, and you just say, I'm gonna do this now? And
pretty much, you know. There's a combination of preparedness and randomness. I mean, you know, everybody has things that they know how to do, and they know how they're going to do it, but I try to combine both of those elements, and I always try to keep the spirit of spontaneity involved, and always, because I feel that by taking those kind of chances, it's the only way that you can really grow and find new things. But at the same time, you want to sound clean and professional, so you're obviously going to play polished and do things that you know how to do too. So, you know, you have that. You try to have an attitude about you to be spontaneous, but at the same time, you know, stay with a certain amount of familiar ground, just to sound clean. And, you know, there's a combination of elements, you know. So,
what would your advice be for this young 9-year drummer starting off, of course, going to the music store and hitting for the first drum kit?
Well, I think that, you know, it's important for any kid, any young children. I mean, just to try to absorb as much knowledge as they can. And in today, it's a lot easier because kids have so much available to them, you know, in terms of hearing great players, and the equipment is very sophisticated, you know, and they have so many choices available to them. And you know, a kid usually knows when he's serious or not, you know. And I think that if he feels that he's serious and he has a love for it, to just go for it, and just I mean, when you're really young, you know, and you're like, if you're like 8 or 9 years old, it's you know, you might not be ready to commit, you know. I mean, a kid that young might not be ready to commit to something. So just have fun with it, you know, have fun and let it flow. And you'll know when you're ready, you know. The kid will know when he's ready to just make that commitment, you know. And when he does, I would just say to just keep his ears wide open and enjoy everything around you, and just don't be closed-minded. You know, I mean, that's the bottom line. Just be as open-minded as you can.
Did you feel when you started off playing drums that it was sort of it wasn't really house clean to play the drums, because it was sort of this beat music, rock and roll music thing? And how did you, if you felt like that, or felt that barrier, that your parents or something?
Well, my parents weren't really. They fostered my interest in music, but they. I mean, in the house, it wasn't like I was hearing jazz or anything, or rock. I mean, it was mostly the radio. It was, you know, I grew up listening to a combination of rock and roll.
What set you off? Which tunes?
Oh, you know, just I liked the Beatles a lot, and I liked Motown, a lot of the Motown stuff that I was hearing. So it was a combination of black music and rock, you know, music, and early rock and roll, and, you know, singers that you would hear on the radio. So it was a combination of those things.
You owe a lot of your style sort of to jazz music.
Yeah, I do, to jazz and
Classic?
well, I don't know about classical music. I mean, in a sense, I mean, my snare drum way is like a combination of rudimental military drumming and legitimate snare drumming, classical snare drumming, and you know, but it's mostly, I would say, jazz and rock and roll, you know. But I mean, I've been influenced by classical music, and lately I listen to it more than I ever did, and I think that even in my compositions, I try to make the drums speak like a legitimate instrument, as opposed to, like, you know, something
melodic playing. So
yeah, instead of something that belongs in a bar room or something, you know. You know, I mean, because most people think of the drum set as a bastardized instrument. It's a legitimate instrument. You know, it really is. I mean, orchestral percussion exists in the realm that it exists in, but a drum set you play with your hands and your feet, and it's just as legitimate as anything else. You know, and I mean, look at Frank Zappa, for example. Again, I mean, he writes legitimate orchestral music for drum set, for rhythm section and orchestra.
Black Page, for instance.
Yeah, Black Page and etc. You know, and so that's a testament of that. You know. Oh, Ian, I signed this for. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
If we had to find some music for this program, and we wanted to choose some Sava music and some Gino Vanelli music, because you played some very good drums on the Gino Vanelli Nightwalker album, which would you like or talk about? For, of course, not for a normal radio audience, but for drum audience.
I think that some of the stuff on "Shut Up and Play Your Guitar" is pretty representative. Is good.
While You Were Out, for instance.
Yeah, right. While You Were Out. I know that there's Soup and Old Clothes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of funny sounding titles.
How did you do the While You Were Out? You know, a lot of people have a fantasy that you were just sound checking, and you recorded while.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't identify a lot of the titles of the tunes with the tunes themselves. But a lot of the way that we recorded a lot of that stuff was we went into the Village Recorder in Los Angeles to record a single, and then ended up in there for a month and a half or something, and we just recorded a bunch of stuff, and Frank just, I think, edited certain things and made it into what he wanted. And he would take guitar solos from like a show that he did in Saarbrücken and put it on top of a track that we cut in LA in a studio, and just sandwich these things together and get some really unique, interesting effects. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that we did at soundchecks, because Frank was hauling around a 24-track tape machine with him on the road, and he would record the soundchecks and he would record the gigs. For example, there's a tune on Tinseltown Rebellion called 555, and that was recorded at a soundcheck at the Odeon Hammersmith in 1979, and it ended up on the record. I remember that afternoon quite well, and so it could have been a soundcheck. It's hard to say, because he has so many reels of tape. He has so much that just sitting around, you know, because he records constantly. It's hard to tell where it came from, you know.
Did you add anything to Frank's music?
Compositionally?
Well, sort of, yeah.
Just improvisationally, really. Yeah, I mean, I gave him some ideas, I think, for some things, but I had input. But my input was not as a writer. My input was like, was just like my personality and my playing had an influence on him. And Frank really just kind of made observations of people and their personalities and their playing styles, and
sustained it.
And almost wrote his music around that, you know. So you know, it's like the band's identity, I think, had something to do with his composition, especially on the road, you know. I mean, he would write stuff in the dressing rooms, you know, and just things would evolve at sound checks and rehearsals. He would be writing things on the road, and we'd just turn around and play it, you know. So it was pretty wild that way.
Did you play sheet music while you were playing?
Sometimes I had bits and pieces of sheet music. Like we'd be playing a song, and in the middle of the tune, there would be like this piece of music that would be inserted in the middle of the tune. It would be some bizarre, like, orchestral piece of music that the band would suddenly have to play in the middle of this tune, and then go back into the song. So it was like all of a sudden watching TV, and you just switched the channel and then switched it back again.
He once stated in an interview that you sort of had a sort of a radar, so you were able to catch up with whatever the band felt, what they were doing. Sort of, you could do anything you like. They could do anything they would like, and you would just follow them steady.
Yeah, I've always...
Did you work on this? How did you develop it?
I think that the way that I developed it was that's just the way that I always played with people. I always liked to play that way with people. It's just part of the way I communicate as a musician. It's just, you know, everybody has a way that they like to play, and as you're learning, you know, your identity remains as you learn. It's like, you know, ever since I played drums and started discovering what improvisation was about, it's like, you know, when I'd hear the sax player play, I would react with the sax player. When I heard the guitar player play solo, I would react with the guitar player, and a lot of times think like a horn player, or think like...
Follow the lead trumpet.
Yeah, you know, yeah, whereas, I mean, a lot of people at the time were saying not to do that, and my thing was, why not, you know? Why shouldn't I do that? What's wrong with it, you know? It opened me up to a whole new world of improvisation, you know? And it was just a different approach. It's just something that I always liked doing, you know? So that's how I think that happened, you know? And in his band, it was a free-for-all, you know? I mean, that was a golden opportunity for me to do that, because there was so much of that going on, improvisation left and right, you know? So it was great.
But then again, from Frank Zappa to Gino Vanelli was a rather great step to take.
Yeah, I mean, that was just like a real structured thing. Gino was a real stickler. I mean, he really wanted every note to be perfect exactly as he wanted it. And you know, I've worked with quite a few people over the years like that preferred every note to be exactly as they wanted it to be, and it's just a whole different approach, you know, a whole different kind of challenge.
How was it?
It was really taxing on me. I mean, it really it was difficult. It was really difficult to work on that record. Not easy at all.
You didn't write down, or you just sort of
memory.
Constant
rehearsal. I'm committed to memory.
Did you rehearse before you did the album, or did you go right into the studio?
We rehearsed for 6 weeks before we went into the studio, and I've never done that in my life. Only for him, you know, and he just operated that way. He had to have everything, every note, every fill, every beat, exactly the way he wanted it.
But in sort of a way, when you listen to the Nightwalk album, you can hear the Vinnie Colaiuta play the drums. It's not like you hear some drum machine programmed by Gino.
Yeah, right. I think the reason for that is because he gave me a certain amount of freedom to play the way I wanted to play, and then if I played a fill that he really liked, he'd say, "Yeah, that's it, do that," and I would have to stick with that. Then maybe 16 bars later, when it came time to play another fill, he would tell me what to play. So I had to remember my fill, and then I had to remember his fill, and then I had to, you know, I might have a combination of my fill and his fill, and it got pretty outlandish. I mean, there was a hit single off of that record, and on that single, I think it was called, I can't remember what the name of it was, Living Inside Myself or something like that.
Inside Myself.
Well, there was like 30 tape edits or something on that tune, because he took, like, we would do like 25 takes or whatever, you know, and from each take he would take a fill that he liked and put it in his main take, and then maybe out of take 25 he would take another 4 bars that he liked from the verse and put that in the verse in the first take, and then from the 15th take maybe he'd take the fill going into the bridge and half of the bridge and put it, so he just chopped it up to death, and just to make the perfect drum track that he wanted, you know. And I mean, you could do that forever and ever and ever, and you know, it's just, you know what that's like. That's so it was just, I mean, yeah, everybody has a different way of working, you know, and like I worked for Jay Graydon too, and Jay was real meticulous, but he didn't do that many edits. You would just have to keep playing it over and over and over and over and over till Jay found that magic take. And you know, God only knows when that would happen, because I mean, we'd play the same tune for, like, you know, all day long, you know, go through reels and reels and reels of tape, you know, just trying to find that one magic take. So it was hard. It's very difficult, you know. Different way of working than Frank, you know.
What other projects do you have up? We heard in Denmark, 3 years ago that you were doing some recordings with Nick Kershaw, and he came with a new album and you weren't on it.
Yeah, that was a little mistake there. That was a premature statement. Unfortunately, what happened was Nick and I had talked about working together, but we didn't get the chance then. Because the record company didn't release his last record in the United States, so he had to do it over here in England. So I wasn't able to be a part of it, and he used other drummers, but I did do this new record that he's working on right now. I played on the entire record, but I don't think I'm going to end up on the entire record, because the reason for that is because the record company, I'm not so sure if they really are approving of the way it is now. So I think Nick may have to go in and redo some stuff. So we'll see what happens, you know. I think Nick has to change a few things around. So I think I'll probably end up on some of it, you know. I hope I do anyway, you know. I don't know really what's going to happen with that.
Do you feel it difficult to work? I mean, the way you work on your drums, it's not like if you had a producer going in and making a hit single, he probably wouldn't choose a drummer that was so variated like you was. Is that what you run into, for instance, working with Nick Kershaw?
No, because Nick is the type of guy who respects guys who can play. He isn't looking for a guy who has been on a million hit singles, to play on his records. He wants guys who can really play, because he's a player himself, So he respects instrumentalists who can improvise. Producers. I mean, I ran into that in the beginning of my recording career, but the thing is that I've kind of established myself now as a musician, and I'm still establishing myself. It's a constant set of changes. You establish clients that you work for and accounts, and then you lose a few accounts and you gain some new ones. And you work for the same people, and then maybe a couple of them may drift away, and then you'll pick up some new ones, and it just kind of does that all the time, And so now I've kind of established myself as a musician, and people pretty much know when I go in a studio that I'm going to play, and that I know how to play on a record, that I'm not going to go in there and just blow all my Vinnie, But the funny thing is that, when I first went to Los Angeles, I couldn't get arrested playing the way that I played, so to speak. I mean, it was like nobody wanted to hire me because they thought that I couldn't play on a track, and they thought that well, he plays great, he can blow, but I wouldn't use him on a record. So it's like, gradually I started getting involved in sessions, and people trusted me enough to use me, and I had to play a certain way. And now it's coming back around full circle again. Now I go in on sessions and people are asking me to do my thing and to blow, and it's like I'll be sitting there, it's like a lot of times they'll say, yeah, go ahead and just do your thing, take it out. And it's not appropriate musically, It's out of place, and I know it's out of place, but they just want me to do it because they got me in there. And it's like, it's not the right thing, and it doesn't make any musical sense. And it's kind of surprising for me to hear a producer tell me to do that when I know it's just going to sound like a bunch of garbage. It's just going to sound funny, It's out of place for the context of the music. So it's a funny thing, like now all of a sudden, so... I guess I have established some kind of identity, and people know that I can blow, but that hasn't scared them away. They like it, and they also know that I know how to play on a record, And so, but there's always a danger of, if you work too much and do too many dates, boy, it's like you can definitely go on to autopilot mode, and just. You got to be careful, because it's hard to put yourself into every song when you're doing date after date after date after date. I was like, last year I was doing like sometimes maybe 4 sessions a day. Do a jingle in the morning for an hour, then I'd go and do a TV session for 3 hours, then I'd go and do a motion picture, for another 3 hours, then I'd turn around and do a record for maybe 6, 7 hours. By 9 o'clock, I was starting on a record till 3:30 in the morning again, and like, a lot of stuff, is anonymous. I don't even hear it, I've done work for Barry Manilow, Barbra Streisand, Johnny Mathis, I don't even hear this stuff, and I did stuff for Bobby Womack, I don't even know, Peebo Bryson, just, I can go on and on, A lot of people there's records that people don't even know I'm on. But if you pick up the jacket, you might see my name and you might not, It's a weird thing. Or like Ford commercials, It's like, TV shows, motion pictures, you don't even know. It's anonymous work,
But you really got yourself into making a good living of playing drums. But don't you think that you now, or you earlier, ought to have sort of do what Vinnie wants to do?
Yeah, I do. I really do feel it's time to do that. I don't want to jeopardize anything that I've taken so long to build up in the studios. I don't want to jeopardize that. But at the same time, I really feel that it's time. I feel like, part of the reason for me to do this, I did this clinic tour for several reasons. I did it because of Avita Siljan Company, of my commitment and my friendship with the company, and I did it because clinics present a special challenge to me. They really do. And I also did it because I love coming to Europe. I love Europe. Yeah, and it's been a long time since I've been here. And it's been a long time since I've been in Denmark. And
Have you been in Denmark before?
yeah, I was here in '83 with Joni Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was here before with Frank Zappa in 80, I think 1980 or 79. So it was like...
Four?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I was.
Shit, that's where he plays to dance as well.
Yeah, I played there, right near the drumstick.
Yeah, right there.
Because I remember I walked across the street to the drumstick, and I was going to use those little yellow drums made out of PVC pipe.
Oh, yeah.
And Simon was going to let...
No, it wasn't. It was a shit pipe.
It was sewer pipe.
Sewer pipes,
It was a sewer pipe, exactly. That's I told Simon that.
Like
So-
Octopus.
Pardon?
It's like Octopus and 10 Octopus.
Yeah, they were great drums.
10-inch
Great.
bass drum and
Well,
4-inch.
They sounded terrific.
With the right skins on it, were real good. Yeah.
with
Yeah.
all batters on them.
All banners, yeah.
Evans
Pins.
Royal hits.
Or
Yeah.
pinstripe, yeah. But the blue Evans.
Really good sound, huh?
Great.
It's incredible. I couldn't believe it. I was,
What did you try when you were
Wow.
a kid to make drums out of sewer pipes? Though.
no, that was the first time I'd seen that. I couldn't believe how good they sounded. I told Simon, I mean, even then, it was amazing. He was going to let me use them, and Frank didn't have the chance to mic them, so I couldn't use them. But Frank really liked them. They brought them over to the Falconet, I think, and he loved the idea, but it was too late. Yeah, but I was here in 1983 with Joni, and no, in fact, Copenhagen was the last gig of the entire tour with Joni, of the European tour. It was the last concert was Copenhagen, and we went home that day. I remember that. It was here, and I can't remember where we played or where we stayed, but I know we played here.
You played Tivoli.
Tivoli?
Yeah.
Tivoli concert. So,
Tivoli Concert Hall.
relatively small place.
Yeah, 2,000 seater, something like that.
Less.
Yeah, 1,800 seaters.
Yeah.
What a difference.
It was really nice.
And a drummer.
Nice sound into it.
Nice sound, yeah. Gold plated, really?
Yeah.
Pure gold plated, really. The ceiling is gold plated.
Oh yeah,
24 karat leaf gold.
that's amazing.
That's crazy. So fucking waste of money.
It's crazy.
So, well, let's end this thing.
Pardon?
Let's end this thing with
Yes.
some good advice for the recording drummer. The guy who wants to, this 15-year-old kid who wants to make himself into one of the best Danish drummers. Record the most records with everybody.
Yeah, I think you got to listen to what's happening from all over the world, and I think that studio drumming has changed over the years in such a way that it's not just limited to like you have to play a certain way. I mean, it's like now when you go in to make a record, you could be up against anything. So the thing is to just try to realize whatever requirements each style of music calls for, and to try to do your best to meet those requirements, and just be as open-minded as you can. And I'm sure that the real talented ones will discover that,
What about drum machines and sequences and
You have to embrace.
Sounds.
You have to embrace those things, and know that they have their place, and so do humans. They really do. I think that they've fallen. Those things have fallen into place now much better. Absolutely,
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.